On warm July nights in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the city carries a familiar rhythm, streetlights casting long shadows on quiet avenues, the hum of passing cars, the muffled music from nearby clubs, and a summer heat thick enough to slow time. It was during one of those nights, July 5, 2016, that something happened which would not only shake the city, but send shockwaves across the United States and the world. A tragedy, a controversy, a flashpoint. The story of Alton Sterling became more than an incident. It became a symbol of questions that have haunted America for decades. Race, policing, justice, and truth. Yet what makes this case so unusual is not merely the tragedy itself, but the strange duality surrounding it. Because unlike many crimes in the past, this event unfolded in front of cameras. Multiple witnesses recorded it. Body cams captured fragments of it. The public could watch it over and over. It was one of the most documented killings of its time. And yet, despite all that, the one question that mattered the most, whether deadly force was necessary, remained clouded in contradiction. To understand how quickly everything unraveled, we have to go back to the start of the night and the call that brought the police to S Food Mart. It was 12:35 in the morning when dispatch received a report from a concerned citizen. The caller described a black man in a red shirt selling CDs who had allegedly threatened him with a gun. That accusation, whether truthful or exaggerated or even fabricated, put into motion everything that followed. Police responded immediately. They already knew who the man in the red shirt was. Everyone in the neighborhood did. Alton Sterling, a 37-year-old father of 5, known for selling CDs in front of the convenience store with permission from the owner. He wasn't a stranger here. To many in the community, he was a fixture. The man with jokes, loud laughter, friendly greetings. To the store owner, he was someone to protect, not fear. And yet, the anonymous accusation made him, in the eyes of law enforcement, not just a vendor, but a possible armed threat. When officers Blaine Salamone and Howie Lake II pulled into the parking lot, the night appeared ordinary. Sterling was outside as always, wearing his signature red shirt, standing near the table where he usually sold CDs. There were other people nearby, customers going in and out of the store, onlookers who noticed the arrival of police but didn't expect anything more than routine questioning. Yet almost immediately, the tension escalated. The officers moved towards Sterling with urgency and demanded he put his hands on a car. They later claimed Sterling was not compliant, that he disregarded orders, that he stiffened and pulled away. It is impossible to know in full detail what happened during those first seconds because none of the recording devices had begun capturing the interaction yet. What we do know is that voices were raised quickly. Someone drew a taser. A scuffle began. Witnesses recall Sterling being startled and confused rather than aggressive. And within moments, both officers and Sterling were on the ground, tangled together in a violent struggle. The whole event unraveled at a speed no one had time to process in real time. The handheld videos from nearby witnesses begin only when the fight is already underway. A fast, chaotic blur of motion, commands, shock, shouting, and panic. One officer can be heard yelling, "He's going for his pocket," over and over. And then 6 gunshots. The echoes of those shots felt as though they froze the city. Sterling lay fatally wounded while the officers rose from the ground, backing away with weapons still pointed. The spectators who had been recording never expected to capture death on camera. It is impossible to listen to the footage or watch those moments without feeling the weight of disbelief. Many who saw Sterling daily would later say they could not, and still cannot accept how quickly a man who had been alive, laughing, and selling music hours earlier could suddenly be gone. But once the initial shock faded, the questions began. The most immediate inconsistency emerged from the central detail of the call to police the gun. Witnesses insisted Sterling never pointed a firearm at anyone that night. The store owner said the gun was never drawn. Videos do not show it in his hand. And yet officers claimed they believed Sterling was reaching for it during the struggle. The handgun was later recovered inside Sterling's pocket. That fact was irrefutable, he had it. But the mystery was the exact moment the officers decided deadly force was necessary. Was Sterling really reaching for the pistol? Was he simply trying to brace himself while pinned? Or was he too overwhelmed by the confrontation to understand commands? No video can answer that, and that uncertainty became the center of the storm. The more investigators reviewed the footage, the more the contradictions deepened. Officers insisted the taser was ineffective because Sterling fought through it, but witnesses noted that a person tensing or pulling away does not always mean aggression. The officers argued that Sterling was exceptionally strong, physically overpowering them, but viewers of the footage saw a man pinned beneath two officers, immobilized. To supporters of the officers, the body movements that occurred during the struggle looked like a suspect reaching for a weapon. To supporters of Sterling, the movements looked involuntary, desperate, or defensive. The footage seemed definitive, yet it was anything but. The mystery continued to grow when federal investigators became involved. The Department of Justice launched an extensive investigation, combing through witness statements, video recordings, forensic evidence, and officer testimony. They looked not only at what happened, but the officers' fears and perceptions leading up to the shooting. And this is where the tragedy takes on an almost eerie dimension, the understanding that two people can experience the same moment in completely different realities. To law enforcement, who had been told that an armed suspect had threatened someone, who heard the word gun shouted repeatedly, who testified that Sterling reached for his pocket, they said they genuinely believed their lives were in danger. To Sterling, if witnesses are to be believed, he may have had no idea why force was escalating so quickly. He may have feared for his own life, not theirs. It is painful to imagine both perspectives, two experiences in direct conflict, and only one of the people involved survived to tell their side. After months of review, federal investigators reached their conclusion. They could not pursue charges, not because they found Sterling guilty of aggression, nor because they found the officers innocent of wrongdoing, but because the law requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the officers did not genuinely believe they were facing a deadly threat. The threshold for prosecution was not met. In the eyes of the law, doubt, not certainty, protected the officers. Later, the state of Louisiana would reach the same decision. To millions across the world who watched Sterling's last moments on video, this result was gut-wrenching. The footage felt like the truth. Yet the justice system declared that it could not be treated as definitive. And here lies the twist that reframes the entire tragedy. Despite all of the recording technology we have today, phones everywhere, body cams on uniforms, even full video documentation does not guarantee clarity. Sterling's death became one of the rare cases where the existence of video raised just as many questions as it answered. Some saw undeniable evidence of excessive force. Others saw justified fear of a possible deadly encounter. The divide was not based on facts alone, but on interpretation, and interpretation shaped public reality. Outrage erupted across the nation. Sterling's family mourned not only the loss of their father, but the public spectacle of his death being replayed over and over online. Protesters filled the streets demanding justice. Strangers across the globe chanted his name. And yet, that word, justice, began to evolve. If the courts could not provide closure, what could? For the Sterling family, justice eventually came in the form of an acknowledgement, a civil settlement of $4.5 million from the city of Baton Rouge. Money cannot replace a life, but it was the city's first public admission that something had gone terribly, irreversibly wrong. And beyond the courtroom and beyond the settlement, something larger began to take shape. Sterling's death contributed to a national wave of examination into policing and accountability. It sparked reforms, investigations, and policies across numerous departments. It led to the adoption of mandatory body camera usage in many areas. It became a rallying point for the Black Lives Matter movement and a permanent name in the ongoing conversation about racial justice. In that broader sense, not the legal one, Sterling did receive justice. His story changed the landscape. He became more than a victim. He became a voice in a long battle for transparency and humanity. What makes this case endure so powerfully is the deep irony at its core. Alton Sterling died in one of the most recorded police encounters in American history. For years, society assumed that if only there were cameras, if only there was footage, truth would finally win instantly and automatically. But Sterling's death revealed something profoundly unsettling. Even when we can see an event, we may still not agree on what we are seeing. Video does not eliminate bias, fear, memory, or belief. Instead, sometimes it amplifies them. Years later, when people return to that footage, when they hear the gunshots, when they hear witnesses crying out in disbelief, everyone brings their own history to what their eyes are seeing. Some people see a threat. Some people see a man trying to survive. Some people see a tragedy that didn't need to happen. And perhaps the most painful truth of all is that Sterling did not live long enough to explain who he was in those final seconds, or what he felt as the situation escalated beyond control. In the end, we are left with a story that is both heartbreaking and haunting. The killing of Alton Sterling reveals a fracture between perception and reality that continues to divide communities today. Yet we cannot deny that his name helped change the world. The marches, the policy reforms, the conversations in classrooms, courtrooms, and dinner tables, these became the justice that the criminal system could not deliver. Sterling may not have intended to become a symbol, but his death became a turning point. A reminder that the fight for fairness is ongoing, unfinished, urgent. So when we say that justice was served, we do not mean a verdict. We do not mean punishment. We mean recognition. We mean awareness. We mean change. Because Alton Sterling's story did not end with 6 gunshots outside a convenience store. It lives on in every demand for accountability, every new debate on policing, every call for reform. That is the legacy he left, unwillingly but indelibly. And perhaps that is the final truth. Sometimes justice is not measured in prison time, but in whether the world refuses to forget your name. Alton Sterling, a man who sold CDs, a father of 5, a life cut short, a tragedy that became a turning point. His story is not just history, it is a warning. If you found this story as disturbing and imperative as we did, remember to like, subscribe, and stay with us. Because down here, in True Crime Odyssey, we keep shining a light so stories like this aren't forgotten. Because sometimes justice doesn't just roll in fast. Sometimes it's quiet, it's persistent, and it's overdue. Thank you for watching.